Hello, and welcome to the 741 channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today, we're going to take a look at another ham radio classic. This time, we've got a Kenwood TW4000A dual band transceiver that we're going to have a look at. So this radio was actually given to me by a local radio guru. He does a lot with CB radio and Part 15 transmitters and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Hopefully we can feature some of his stuff on the channel here in the future. But for now, we're going to take a look at this old classic. Let's get it on the bench and get a closer look at it. So way back in the early 80s when Kenwood introduced this radio, they were way ahead of their time. Long before Siri was a sparkle in Steve Jobs' eyes, Kenna was here to help us with our frequency navigating duties. Hey Kenna, what frequency am I on?
V6.520.
Thanks, Kenna. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so you're just going to lay right there? You can't use this. You don't have a license. Can I get in here and show everyone the radio? So here's the Kenwood TW4000A. This is a 2 meter and 70 centimeter dual band FM transceiver. This, of course, was designed to be put in a car and used mobile, but there's no reason that you couldn't use this in a home station with an external power supply and antenna. So first glance at this radio, it's a little bit beat up. The guy that gave it to me, I think he said he got it out of some kind of a trailer. I think he meant a camper or something like that. It had been sitting in there for a while, and then I think it was sitting in his garage for a while. So it's a little bit dusty and dirty and banged up, but I think for the most part it's okay. So I always like finding these old radios that have some sort of throwback to a previous owner. Now this one has a previous owner's call sign on it, WA2KZH right here. So even after I clean this radio up, I'll probably leave that there, just because I think it adds a little bit of nostalgia to the radio and helps tell its story. So I always liked the styling of these old Kenwoods too, sort of that fake brushed aluminum front finish that was popular back in the 80s. And they just had a good solid feel. All the knobs and controls just felt pretty high quality for the time. Now this radio has a few features that were sort of high-end for its time period, one of them being the ability to generate CTCSS or PL tones so that you could access your local repeater that might have been instituting a CTCSS or PL tone at the time. Now the radio has two power settings, a 5-watt setting and a 25-watt setting, both on VHF and UHF. Now by today's standards, that 25-watt maximum power output's a little bit low, but I think in most situations it gets the job done. So over here are the volume and squelch controls. Now of course a lot of the modern radios are reverting to sort of what I'll call electronic squelch, or squelch that has to be set in a menu system, but I find the old mechanical squelch control much easier to use, especially if you're driving and you want to play with that squelch control. You don't have to fumble through a menu setting. So the radio also has 10 memory frequencies that can be programmed independently to either VHF or UHF frequencies. And if you wanted to store a repeater frequency in memory, it would also remember the offset that you wanted for each memory channel. And the radio could scan through all 10 of those frequencies as well. So one other thing that was unique with these radios, and you already heard it, was sort of that voice reporting for the frequency. And I think that was marketed for sort of blind or sight impaired hams, so that they could operate the radio without having to necessarily see the LCD and figure out what frequency they were on. So the voice, or what I like to call Kenna, can be turned on and off with this little switch here. Now I think this was an optional module. You could buy the radio without this and save a little bit of money if you didn't need it. Now over here in the back corner is where you would set your PL or CTCSS frequency using these dip switches. You'd have to kind of pull the manual out to figure out which way to set these switches for the PL tone that you needed. I also think this might have been an option board that you could leave off if you wanted to save another couple of bucks on the radio if you were on a budget. I'm not sure what this red switch is down here. One of the previous owners put this in here. We'll have to figure this out a little bit later. So like I said before, this was intended primarily to be a mobile radio, but if you look on the bottom of the radio, Kenwood included these brackets here. You could put a wire bail in here, and that wire bail would hold the front of the radio up just a little bit so that the speaker wasn't muffled by your desk. I'm not so sure if this is the original bracket that came with the radio or not. If we look at the side here, you can see it almost looks like there was provisions for sort of a quick release bracket. I'll have to take a look at the manual and see what would have came with this. And if we look at the back of the radio, you can see a pretty decent heat sink with some cooling fins to keep the final output modules nice and cool while you were transmitting. And you can also see that the radio actually has two antenna connections, one for VHF, which is what I'm hooked up to now, and this other one here is for the UHF band. So you could run two separate antennas with two separate coaxes if you wanted to, or you could get, I think it's called a diplexer, that would combine both connections and let you use one dual band antenna for the radio. This 3-pin connector back here I think was intended to be used with a phone patch module, which of course back in the early 80s was kind of a popular thing in ham radio. You could make phone calls through your local repeater if it offered that feature. Or you could set this up in a fixed station with a phone patch and use your own phone line while you were driving around mobile with a different radio. Kind of a cool feature to have actually back in the day. So it's about 10 p.m. on a Saturday evening. There's really not a lot going on the repeaters right now. So what I think I'll do is hook up a dummy load over here, and I'll hook up one of my SDR Play software-defined receivers over on the computer on the other side of the room. And then what I'll do is transmit with the radio and record the received audio on the SDR over on the computer and let you guys listen to what this thing sounds like. Let's make sure it's working this time. Yes. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. So I've got the Kenwood set up on 2 meters right now, and I've got a little dummy load connected up through this VHF UHF power meter. Let's check it out and see what it sounds like. This is N1 NUG, November 1, November Uniform Golf. Testing the Kenwood TW4000A on 2 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. November 1, November Uniform Golf. So now let's test out 70 centimeters and see what that sounds like. This is N1 NUG, November 1, November Uniform Golf. Testing the Kenwood TW4000A on 70 centimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. November 1, November Uniform Golf. So even though the cat doesn't look like she's too impressed with what I'm about to do here, I think we'll try the yaesu FT2900 on the same meter and dummy load that we were working with on the Kenwood. Let's see what it sounds like. One difference with this test is that I have the yaesu set to 5 watts and I had the Kenwood set to high power, which was 25 watts. But the Kenwood's about 10 feet further away from the receiver than the yaesu is, so this should be pretty close. This is N1 NUG, November 1, November Uniform Golf. Testing the yaesu FT2900 on 2 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. November 1, November Uniform Golf. So the only other radio that I have that's even halfway decent on UHF is this Anytone 878. I was playing around here. I don't have the UHF calling frequency programmed in this radio. I was going to hook it up to the computer and update my code plug to add it in, but I don't want to disturb the cat, so I've just tuned to one of the repeater frequencies that I've got loaded in here, tuned the SDR Play over to that frequency, and we'll just test on that frequency instead. Anyway, I've got the same meter and dummy load hooked up that I've been using all along, so let's give it a shot. This is N1 NUG, November 1, November Uniform Golf. Testing the Anytone on UHF. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. November 1, November Uniform Golf. So I tested the radio out with my buddy John, KB1OYB. He lives a couple of miles away. So we were able to connect up on Simplex both on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. And he reported that the radio sounded good on his end, and I heard him just fine on the radio myself. Well, everything was working except the camera. I lost the footage from those clips, so I won't be able to play them back in this video. So I tried to access a couple of the repeaters with the radio, both UHF and VHF. And with the antenna that I have hooked up to it right now and my location, I was just having a little trouble getting into the repeaters that are all kind of pretty much on the other side of the hill from me. So I'm going to have to make a better antenna or put the radio in my car and drive over to the other side of the hill and try it there. Now, having said that, I was able to receive some conversation on the local repeater between John, KB1OYB, and Brian, KB2UZY. So why don't you guys listen to that now?
KB1OYB, KB2UZY. When I went to explore my father's Zenith floor model TV, I went in the back there. How I went back there, John, and I took the back cover off, John, and I put my hand right on that picture tube, and next thing you know, I woke up in the hospital, and I got zapped with, I don't know how many volts I got zapped, but I got charred there pretty good. I think I told you that. I think it went into the newspaper.
I have a hunch I know where you went, because I did the very same thing, but I didn't wind up in the hospital. I was changing the picture tube in my own television. I had 3 brothers in the business. They're telling me how to do it. No problem. Unplug this, unplug that. You know, they told me to unplug the anode lead, but they didn't tell me to put up like a jumper wire with alligator clips to ground what's underneath that anode lead. So I put my finger underneath that cup to remove that anode lead, and oh my God, I wound up on the other side of the room.
So there's more I want to do to the radio, but to keep this video from getting too long, I think I'm going to cut it here and save that for the next one. The first thing I want to do is give this radio a thorough cleaning, and it'll look pretty good once it's all shined up. Oh, you're back. Oh, really? Now what? All right, we're going to have to go now. Come on, let's go. I didn't really mention it in this video, but there is a little bit of a problem with the radio. When I first power it up and turn it on, the display comes out all kind of zeros. And what I have to do is kind of turn it on and off a few times, and it'll kind of come out of it and go back to normal. What I suspect is going on is that the lithium memory battery is old and needs to be changed. If I put a fresh one in there, I think that problem should clear up. And the other thing I want to do is figure out what this red button is for. Now, when the radio was fired up, I did push it a few times, but I didn't really notice anything happen. But either way, I'll take it apart, check it out, see what's going on with that. But before we wrap the video up, I've got one more question for Kenna. Hey Kenna, what's your favorite YouTube channel?
741.
But for now, I guess that's going to do it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to leave a comment or subscribe, feel free to do that as well. Thanks for watching. It just goes all zeros. I have to turn it on and off a few times in order to get it to work right. What? You just want to come over here and be in the video? The next thing I need to do... Really? What do you want from me? Again? There's nothing over there. What are you going to do now? Can I just finish this? Yeah? You like it? You want to finish this up or what? Oh, again? Another one? Alright, you were content over by the wood stove. What's going on? Okay, here we go. Turn around again. Up on the desk.
741.